Welcome to another edition of Fourth and One. Nick is really excited today. I'm Todd Palmer, host of the Fourth and One podcast, joined by my co-host Nick. For those of you who don't know, his real name is Nick Jacobs, and he watches a lot of game film. But if he hears me use his full name or call him an NFL insider, he will be very upset. So, Nick, how are you doing today?
I heard all that in my headphones.
Oh, man. Dang it, I was caught again.
you have to turn down my headphones if you
Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Where's that switch? Here, do I just hit you on the side of the head like that? No? Oh man, I'm in trouble again, aren't I?
That's called assault.
That's okay.
It's called
Oh
assault.
man. Oh man. Hopefully Scott Winkler's not listening.
Pretty sure he is.
Hi Scott, how are you? Scott's our HR guy, so I feel like I succeeded in sending this thing way off the deep end early again. I'm like 58 for 58 now, I think.
I'm just proud. I'm just proud that you wore an official shirt that had your name on
That's
it.
right.
So
That way, if I get lost at the mall, I can tell people, I'm Todd. I'm with the Palmer family reunion.
oh wow, that's a reunion shirt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No,
No, that was a fancy emblem. I didn't. Is that your family crest?
It's the Palmer family crest. My dad went all out for the 2010 family reunion.
Wow.
Man. Yeah.
Well, how legendary was that one?
Oh man. I mean, the horseshoe tournament that year was epic. And I stayed on the tube longer than anyone.
Was there any upsets in the Palmer family bracket?
Yeah, there was. My dad didn't break a hip, so that was an upset.
I'm gonna wait till you finish your drink before I say it. So, I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a stall right now because Todd is
sorry.
Drink. So then, what was your dad's seed in the tournament?
Well, there were 33 people in the tournament. But we pair up, so he was seeded 33rd.
I like how your family did somebody have a bye in the tournament?
Well, no, we just somebody died from the year before. Granny wasn't around for the 2010 family reunion. Horseshoe tournament. Thanks for bringing that up, Nick.
It's like, dude. I knew the shirt had your name on it. I didn't know your family went all out with the logo and everything.
Yeah, no, like I said, my dad was very excited because this was the first year that he had all of his kids together, and my younger brother and then my half brother and half sister. As it turns out, though, we found out 7 years later, that he actually has another child. So when I was 38, I found out I had a 42-year-old sister. So as it turns out, we didn't have all of my dad's kids together back in 2010 because we only knew about 4 of the 5. True story.
Okay. There's places.
Some of the rest of that was made up, but that part's true.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna stop now because I know the rabbit hole this turns into, and people want.
Oh, and you have to start making edits,
and then people.
You have to start editing the podcast if we go down this road any farther.
I think at this point we might as well just get to football because there are some people.
Football?
Yeah,
it's not football season. Are we covering AAF this week? AAF
No.
Oh, stick to the rundown. That's what you mean. Okay. Oh, that's right. We're getting ready for the draft. There's a little thing called the NFL draft coming up at the end of next month. Nick, I don't know if you're aware.
I'm just hoping 5 people are still listening right now at this point.
I'm sure my sister is. Now, the real question is old sister or new sister. See? That's going to leave you scratching your head. But I don't know if you're aware, Nick, but they bring together like college football players from around the country. And NFL teams can select which ones they'd like to add through their team in a cyclical, they call it process wherein you can add young players cheaply to your team. It's called the NFL Draft. It will take place in Nashville this year. How excited are you that we're 7 weeks out? 4 weeks out. 4 weeks out.
I don't know about numbers, Todd. I just know it's at the end of April, and that's coming up. And I know somebody didn't turn off their phone, so that's cool.
So just it's at the end of April.
Yes, I do know it's at the end of April.
I don't know what that is. So how excited are you about the NFL draft coming up?
Yeah, and we've established this on another podcast that I get excited about that. That's my time of the year.
All right. Where does
We-
so okay? So that weekend in Nashville,
Yeah.
Brett Veach is going to get you some presents, and you're going to get to unwrap them as you watch. Do you prefer watching on NFL Network or ESPN, or what's your network of choice for watching draft coverage?
Well, last year I was on Sky Center for most of it, so I didn't get to see a handful of it. So.
Just generally.
I mean, NFL Network's normally where I like the analysis, but with Mike Mayock gone this year,
I was gonna say.
I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. But then Gruden's gone from ESPN again, so if Lewis Riddick's on the broadcast again this year, which I think he will be, that'll probably be very intriguing.
So there you go, ESPN. All right. I mean, I kind of like. I used to like it when we'd sit in the Chiefs media room and you could watch both. That way, you could pick whichever one was more interesting at the time.
Yeah, when they had the two TVs connected to it, it was very nice in that Chiefs media room.
I feel like working at a TV station, we can make that happen where we have multiple TVs tuned into the draft.
Yeah, that's happened before.
So, okay. Now you're going to be opening these presents on draft day that Brett Veach gets you. Running back, is that going to be one of the bigger presents you're most excited to open, or is that just one that you feel? Is that like the stuff in the stocking that you kind of have to get out of the way before you get to the good stuff?
No, I mean if they get a quality running back, then that'll be intriguing, and it'll depending if they get the type that I'm looking for, then yeah, no, I'll be happy with where they selected it. I'll be curious about that part of it.
I was going to say,
how high priority it is.
If you guys have been under a rock, obviously the Chiefs had one of the best running backs in the NFL the last 2 years in terms of production on the field in Kareem Hunt. And then, of course, video surfaced of him shoving and kicking a woman in a Cleveland hotel. He also had a couple other incidents where he, had a couple other violent episodes. Dismissed from the team also because he lied to the coaching staff. Now, you and I both believe that running back is a position they must address in this draft. I mean, they signed Damian Williams to an extension shortly after the Kareem Hunt situation happened. They went out and they got Carlos Hyde and added him after he spent last year with Cleveland and Jacksonville. And they still got Darrell Williams, an undrafted free agent on the roster that we think has some promise. But we both think that they're still going to use a pick, probably third round or later, right, on this to address the situation.
I don't know. It depends. It depends how some of the other things shake out. But I mean, I could personally see it anywhere between 2 to 5, depending on which players they covet and what fall to them. Which you won't find out till obviously draft day.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting though because as we were looking at some of the draft research ahead of time, there isn't a Saquon Barkley in this year's draft. There's really not necessarily a first round, can't miss type prospect like a Saquon Barkley. So, do you think first of all, do you even think a running back will go in the first round this year?
From what I watched on tape, I'm not 100% sure. It'll depend on if there's a team that wants to sneak up and take a player in the first round before it's over with. So I mean, I personally, I really don't know. I know there's some guys up there. I know like Josh Jacobs from Alabama is somebody that I know people covet a great deal. But for what I want for the Chiefs, I don't think they have to make a first round investment.
Oh, absolutely not. No, there's just so many other needs that I think are greater than running back on this roster. I would actually be a little bit surprised unless somebody late just like you said loves a Josh Jacobs or Damian Harris, the other running back from Alabama in this draft. Unless somebody just loves one of those guys and doesn't think they're going to be there early in the second round and wants to trade into those late round picks somehow. And get a guy like a Josh Jacobs or Damian Harris. I'm not sure that anybody goes in the first round this year. I want to get your impression too, because I feel like running back is a position that has really lost its value and it's lost its significance in the NFL. Not in terms of the need to get production from that position, but just in terms of the need to have a workhorse, a star player, the need to invest a lot of money. I just feel, I don't feel like the days of the Walter Paytons or the Barry Sanders exist anymore. I think a lot of teams prefer to do it by committee. I think you can get guys pretty cheap, and the shelf life for a running back in the NFL because of the beating that those guys take, I feel like is pretty short. So I just when I look at the Jets and how much they spent on say Le'Veon Bell, I wonder if that wasn't a misuse of resources. How do you feel about the running back position and the way it is or should be valued in the NFL now?
I mean, ideally, I think what teams like to do if they can is obviously, like you said, they like to go draft the kids and then develop them for the 3 to 4 years and kind of utilize them. And this player may be their power back, this player may be their speed back, this player may be a combo in between. And I think teams kind of like to essentially, if you want to look at it from an investment standpoint, they like to diversify their portfolio. So they like to have all different styles of run that can fit the scheme that they want. So, yeah, if you can get them at a cheap rate, then I obviously think a lot of teams prefer to do that. And that's why when the Jets spent what they did on Bell to try to re-energize the fan base and to get them excited by a name more so than potential production.
All right. We're going to talk a lot here in the next segment about these running backs in this draft class and who we think is a good fit for the Chiefs. So stick with us and come on back here on the other side of this break. Welcome back to 4th and 1. I'm Todd Palmer, joined by Nick Jacobs. And Nick, I want to talk a little bit about some specific guys in this draft. We mentioned Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs from Alabama in the previous in the previous segment, but do you think either one of those guys are on the Chiefs' radar? I haven't heard that they've met with either one of those guys, even though a lot of people have them as the top running backs. Do you see either one of those guys as a fit for what the Chiefs are looking for in this draft?
No, from what I saw on tape, I personally don't think either one of those guys is really going to be a fit for what they need to replace overall in Kareem.
So now, from what we understand, the Chiefs, okay, so what are the Chiefs looking for? Because those two guys are a little bit bigger. They're more built in the power mold. You know, they're more between the tackles type runners, I think, in Jacobs and Harris. What do you think the Chiefs are looking for from that running back position in terms of if you were to create, kind of, what are the ingredients they're looking for in terms of running back that would be a good scheme fit?
Well, I mean, right now what they have on the roster is they have two power backs in Darrell Williams and then Carlos Hyde. So from that aspect, you really don't need a power running back like those. I feel the Alabama Josh Jacobs is. Now, Damian Williams is kind of more their shotgun finesse back. He can run out of shotgun, and he can do some of the passing offense that they need to in the flats, and then he can do some of the zone reads and some of the zone runs. His vision isn't elite by any means, but he's able to get the job done. So at this point, I think you're kind of looking for a guy who's kind of that in between, who has some power to him, or you want somebody that has the home run hitting speed ability. And if you can find something that's in between, then I think that's also very intriguing too, to where I think if you can find either one of those, and if you can find that combine the best of both worlds, and I think that's kind of where you want to head if you're the Chiefs organization.
I'll tell you a guy who I think does kind of blend all those characteristics is Darrell Henderson at Memphis. He had 1,900 yards, 22 touchdowns this year. One of the top backs, at least in terms of production. Do you think he's a fit? I know he's a guy that the Chiefs have met with at the Combine. So we know he's on their radar. Where do you see him as a fit? And do you think it's worth burning one of those third-round picks if they're still there picking in those spots, on a guy like a Darrell Henderson?
Yeah, Darrell Henderson from Memphis. To me, he's a home run hitting back. I mean, he's got top end speed and he's got that extra gear. I like his center of gravity to be able to bounce off hits. I think he understands how to properly rise into a defender. And what I mean by that is that a player knows how to get low and then use their explosion and their leg power to essentially rise up into the defender, into their sternum, and be able to run them over in that regard. So I feel like he's got that. I feel like he's got a good feel for the hole under center, more so than he does from shotgun in the zone read. So I think that's something that they would have to work on, the running backs coach would. I mean, he's dangerous if he hits the second level, so and that's something that you check the box on. And I think he's a good receiver with some good speed in his route running. So, I mean, he's a mismatch for backers and safeties, and he's willing to pass block, which is something I'm always looking for in a running back. And then off tackle runs, he's able to outrun the angle with the speed that he's got. Yeah,
guy that averaged 8.9 yards a carry. Do you worry at all about level of competition though? Because his biggest games came against Central Florida, Houston, Navy. And those are good football teams, but he didn't do it week in, week out in the SEC. He didn't do it week in, week out in the Big Ten or some of those other conferences. Do you worry at all, or have you seen enough on tape to feel like that it'll translate to the NFL?
Speed shines no matter who you're playing, and whoever's on the field, you got to execute regardless. He's able to do that.
Yeah, only had 4 carries for 15 yards and wasn't able to stay in the game against Missouri, though, in one of the big tests he had last season. Who else do you like? Who else do you think would be a good fit? Who are your favorite guys after studying some film?
Favorite, obviously, Dexter Williams is another guy from Notre Dame. I really like his ability. That guy's speed. It only takes 4 steps for him to get the top end speed, which in that aspect is phenomenal. I mean, his ability to hit the corner and get upfield it's pretty impressive. It jumps out on you on tape. I think he's got a strong lower body, so he's able to break the tackles. He's got some really, really good leg power to be able to drive through it. He's his combination of speed and how smooth he is as an athlete shows up in the passing game, and his ability to catch in the flats. I think he's fluid on his cuts, and he's got good explosion. He's gonna need help in the pass protection, but that guy can cover 10 yards really, really quickly, and I think he's got good vision. I think he's gonna need a little work on his cutback. Dave, go ahead.
What about a guy like a Travion Williams who had really good numbers, averaged almost 6.5 yards a carry for Texas A&M, you had an even faster 40 time at the combine than even Dexter Williams.
Yeah, I mean he'll be a guy on my list when I end up writing the article, but he's a guy that I think needs more touches because he's a guy that gets stronger as the game goes on, and the more touches he gets, the better feel he has for the game.
Wasn't that a little bit like Kareem Hunt, though? I mean, that was one of the things you loved about Kareem was that he got stronger and stronger, and by the fourth quarter, he was just putting guys away. Can Travion Williams be that kind of guy, or is it a little different?
With Travion, I think that it's for him. It's all going to be how they mix the touches in with him. So, I mean, they're going to have to make a decision if they want to do a committee. He may not be the best for it, but again, there's certain running backs that they need 25 touches a game. They need it spread out in a certain way that if you're able to do those things, then they really start to shine. So, yeah, in terms of a fourth quarter aspect, yes, he's a little like Kareem in that regard, but I think with the Chiefs potentially doing a committee, I think they're going to need it's going to be a unique thing to have to figure out.
Okay, so who else besides Dexter Williams, Darrell Henderson? Are there other guys that you feel like stand out and are really good fits for what the Chiefs want to do that would be available in that third, fourth, fifth round range? You think?
Yeah, David Montgomery from Iowa State. He's got fantastic vision, really good feel for being in open space and his ability to run. I think he's relentless in his effort and desire to get a positive yard on each play. I think that's very infectious on a football team in a good way, to where I think that kind of drives some other people. He's kind of a fire starter for you. He somehow is able to turn losses into gains on almost any play, to where it looks like a defender's going to have him 2-3 yards in the backfield, and they don't, just because of his effort and desire. His stop and start is really good, and then his ability to explode after he stops and then starts again, and just a couple steps, really good. And he has a unique ability to make defenders miss just with a simple stutter step. He knows how to get small in a hole and not lose the speed, which is a very rare trait for a lot of running backs. When you have a guy like that, that's somebody that you mark highly on your list. He never stops driving his feet, even if it looks like he may be tackled. He keeps driving, and sometimes he's able to break some of those tackles. The thing is, he may not have top end speed per se, but it's very close to it, and he's able to make up for it with the mentality that he runs with, his nimbleness, and his short area burst. All those combined, I think that's kind of. I'm impressed with Montgomery. That's somebody that I would personally really, really be excited if they invested in.
Well, and he's a guy who's a little bit bigger. He's in the 220-pound range. Some of these other guys are more in the 205, 210 range that we've talked about. Is there anybody else? I mentioned Justice Hill earlier.
Yeah.
Is he a guy that intrigues you?
Yeah, well, he does from a speed perspective, because I know Andy likes that type of speed, and I know he'd like to have that in his offense. Or I figure he would like to have that in his offense based on all the years of watching his scheme. I mean, Justice Hill's got the best speed coming out, got some of the best speed coming out of the draft at the running back position. He's not too far off from Tyreek Hill in terms of speed on tape. He's willing to sacrifice his body and pass protection. He's got that, obviously, he's got the next level gear when he hits the second level. Again, he's a guy he's stronger than he looks, drives his legs, he breaks tackles more than I thought he would. His balance and his ability, and this is something that Jamal Charles had, and even Kareem Hunt had to an extent. Justice Hill, I was impressed with his balance and his ability to maintain his speed and change directions. Because when a player gets potentially hit by by a defender or something, sometimes they just they'll end up stumbling or something will happen. But to be able to have that center of gravity and that balance, Justice Hill is one of those guys that does.
So I think we've got 5 running backs there that you seem to like as fits.
Yeah, I got 4.
I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, who just let's are there? I mean, how many guys do you think the Chiefs realistically are going to be looking at? Because I think they've we know that they've talked to 9 or 10 guys, right? You know, and that includes some guys like LJ Scott from Michigan State, who, you know, maybe not as explosive, you know, a little bit bigger, maybe more of an undrafted free agent type guy at the end of the day, or a much later round pick. But who are some other guys that you think, specifically if you're looking 3rd, 4th, 5th round?
Well, Devin Singletary is obviously one I know that the Chiefs, I believe they're intrigued by out of FAU. He didn't really have the top end speed, so I think that's going to be a little bit of a knock on him. But the attitude that he has, he's got a good burst off tackle, he's got good vision and good leg churn. I like his jump cut, and he likes to stay square with the hole. So that'll be interesting to see how that works in the NFL. But I mean, he can work in the pass game. Like I said, he's willing to cut block, and that's something that a lot of running backs don't like to do, and he's willing to do it.
A little smaller guys, only 5'7", compared to a lot of these other guys in the 5'10" range.
Yeah. Now, a guy who's more in the Kareem Hunt mold in terms of size is Benny Snell out of Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a similar build to Kareem, strong, powerful running back, got good vision, good speed for his size. I mean, he can break tackles with how hard he runs. Obviously, he didn't have that top end speed because of his size, but I mean, he's got deceptive speed for the stature that he's got. And then next one on my list is Jalen Moore out of Appalachian State. Again, another guy that's kind of in that same build. I like his overall athletic ability. It's not necessarily elite by any means, because obviously he's further down on the list. But again, he's a guy who's willing to cut block if he needs to. He knows how to get low and rise up into defenders. Powerful runner. But with the right coaching, I think somebody could take him to the next level as a running back. He's smooth catching out of the backfield, and I like his vision overall. So that's another guy, and I got 3 more left.
All right, you want to? Well, just take them off, man.
Yeah, Devin Zigbo, I believe it's pronounced, from Nebraska. Another guy who's got Kareem Hunt type size. I really like his vision. He makes his cuts look effortless for a guy his size, which is hard to do, but he somehow finds a way. I like his balance, and he has got better balance than I expected him to have. Catches the ball cleanly in the open field. He can turn up quick. Deceptive speed. Really good instincts in the open field, and just takes it to another gear once he's in the open field. And the unique thing about him, and this is why I'm really, really intrigued by him, is he can actually be a power back in both the zone and shotgun scheme, which is typically rare. And that's what made Kareem rare, is a lot of those power backs, they seem to struggle in a shotgun formation. And Devin is not a guy who you have that problem with. After that, Alexander Madison from Boise State. Again, he's a guy who I feel has a unique blend of strength, size, and speed. He has a good patience in his running and picks the correct hole to accelerate at just the right time. So he's got a really good feel in that regard. He's got the right amount of power to get the extra yards if needed. He has enough shake to make a tackler miss, and he can accelerate afterwards after making that guy miss, which, I mean, having those two combinations that's rare in a running back. And then leg drive's impressive, and he's determined to punish defenders when he runs. And then last guy for me, Marquise Young out of UMass. He's the home run hit. He's one of the home run hitting backs in this draft. It's going to be really underrated, in my opinion. He can take any play the distance with good blocking. He didn't get that at times at UMass, but he's a tough runner that can, he's another guy that can make defenders miss. He's got a really good combination of speed and power to be able to break arm tackles for his size, which was somewhat surprising to me, and that really intrigued me. And then he's a hard and relentless runner, and he's got better vision than I expected. But going back to Devin Zigbo from Nebraska, he was underutilized in Nebraska until Scott Frost came there, and he really shined this year. You see it statistically. But I think in the NFL, with the right scheme and the right system, I think he's a guy that a lot of people can be like, where'd this guy come from? Why didn't I hear more about him in college? And I think that's going to be why, because he wasn't really properly utilized in Nebraska.
And I want to mention real quick, Missouri has a guy in the draft, Demarie Crockett, big guy, actually ran a 4.4 at his pro day, which is as fast as Justice Hill, but Demarie is 220. The big knock on him, though, I mean, he's missed a lot of time with shoulder injuries. Durability has always been a concern. He basically missed big chunks of 2 seasons there at Missouri. Also had, a marijuana incident when he was at Missouri. But he's a guy who I don't know if you studied him at all, but will be available there in the draft. I was a little surprised that he came out and declared after his junior year. I thought he was a guy that would benefit from one more year in college, but there he is. He's out there, and I think he's got a chance to get noticed because of that 4.4 40 time.
Yeah, well, let's see how it works out for him.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more. I'm gonna play a pop quiz with Nick and put him on the spot, which is his favorite thing ever, guys. When we come back here on 4th and 1. Welcome back to the part of the show where I try to push Nick's buttons a little bit and see if we can get a rise out of him. How am I doing so far?
I wish you the best in your future endeavor, and then we also have check the tweets when you're done with that.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to go real quick. I mean, we talked about several running backs in that last segment, and so really this won't be too tough for you. It is a bit of a pop quiz. I want to know, in your opinion, of the guys that you listed, of the guys that you've studied, of the guys that you've looked at that you think are good fits for the Chiefs, who's the most explosive? Who's the guy that, like Jamaal Charles, could take it the distance on any carry and bring that aspect to the table? Because we saw what Andy Reid was able to do with Jamaal Charles when he first got here to Kansas City, and it was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, the guy that I want to see him live in person, since I was only able to watch him on tape. But Marquise Young out of UMass, that's a guy that really intrigues me. Him and Justice Hill, both from a speed perspective, those are two guys that I see similar to Jamaal in that regard.
All right, and who was the best pass catcher? Because as we know, if you're not gonna be that power back in Andy's system, and even if you are, you've got to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Now, in terms of pass catching, do you want their ability to catch and run, or just their ability to
catch and run? Yeah.
Ability to catch and run. I mean, again, I think Marquise Young is going to be one of those guys, but then also Devin Ozigbo from Nebraska. Really, I think he could be fun to watch in the open field. I think Andy could find some mismatches with him.
Marquise Young from UMass, maybe some concern there about his ability to step in right away and make an impact. Of the guys that you think, is there anyone on that list who you think could be like a Kareem Hunt, where they step in, they have a great training camp, and they emerge as your go-to back from game one next year?
Well, I think
it seems like you love Ozigbo.
I'm not. I want to say his name, but I'm not going to. Benny Snell, I can't get him out of my head in terms of how he reminds me of Kareem when I watched him run.
Yeah. And last one, on draft day, on draft weekend, I guess, since it spreads over 17 days now. But during draft month, the Chiefs call this guy's name, and that's the happiest you could possibly have been with them selecting this running back. Who is it?
Well, you already know two of the guys I'd be very intrigued by, but I will be kind of excited if they are able to get David Montgomery. That I think
out of Iowa State.
Yeah, I think that's a guy that just brings something special. They could bring something special to the offense in terms of attitude with Mahomes and playmaking ability and just kind of that drive and that fire. I think in those regards, I think he would be a fun ad for the offense. But there's a lot of running backs in this draft that I think could all contribute in the Chiefs system that can help fill the void that the Chiefs have in a premier back.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first, guys. Nick Jacobs will be angry if David Montgomery isn't a Chief on May 1st.
That's stretching it a great deal, but I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Okay, real quick. There's one other position that I want to address today. I don't think the Chiefs are going to draft a guy, certainly not high at this position, but we still need to address it at some point. Quarterback. First of all, do you feel like the Chiefs need a quarterback?
No, I don't think they need a quarterback.
You're comfortable going with Patrick Mahomes?
Mahomes is, I think as long as he doesn't have an unforeseen injury, which I hope he doesn't.
You better knock on some wood, boy.
There you go. There, just for you. And then Chad Henne is a solid veteran behind, so that Mahomes can kind of share ideas with him and his experience in the NFL. And then I do like Chase Litton for Litton time. So
they're probably going to bring in an undrafted guy just to soak up reps and take. They've
already got EJ Manuel as the fourth guy right now. So unless you're swapping,
no, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about EJ. Yeah.
I don't know if you need a camp. I hate to say it in this regard, but I don't know if you need a camp body to be that fourth thrower.
Look, and we kind of. You know that maybe they sign an undrafted guy who doesn't really have any chance of making the roster, but still, if you get to come in and spend 3 months with Mahomes, with Chad Henne, working with Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy and his staff, That's a hell of a valuable experience for a guy. So don't knock it. Even if they do bring a guy in just to get some more reps in rookie minicamp, or something like that. That's a valuable opportunity for a guy. Probably, however, will not be local Lee Summit legend Drew Lock, because I suspect Drew is probably going to be drafted fairly early in this draft. Where do you have him? Is he your number 1, number 2, number 3 quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the quarterbacks, I think he's second behind Kyler Murray. I just think Kyler Murray's got more athletic ability that somewhat in terms of athletic ability. I want to emphasize this in terms of athletic ability and touch. He reminds me somewhat of Russell Wilson coming out from NC. He's at NC State and then Wisconsin. But yeah, I mean, Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock has the most promise in terms of throwing power. And
he's got a cannon, man.
So I mean,
and he's more the prototypical size, 6'3.5".
Yeah.
And still, he's a lot faster than people realize, and he's a lot better athlete. I mean, people forget this is a guy who could have gone to Mizzou or Oklahoma for basketball too, coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I don't really have a number of where I think he's going to go. I personally think he's ended up with the Denver Broncos.
A lot of people like Dwayne Haskins. I know you have concerns about his accuracy, even though he had the highest completion percentage of those top 3 guys.
Well, what I was looking at when I looked at him on tape, and especially against the Michigan game, he did a lot of he effectively threw the crossing routes, and he was able to throw some of the slants, but I was surprised at how much he struggled on some of the deeper over the middle throws. I didn't expect him to have some problems with that. What I think defensive coordinator is going to find with him, and teams are going to have to work with him, is where I'm really, really nervous is outside the numbers on the deep balls, especially if there's a safety over the top. He doesn't have the touch to pinpoint it in their accuracy wise. He seems to be a little bit more nervous, and it's off kilter a little bit. So that's from an accuracy perspective, that's going to make me nervous. And if I'm a defensive coordinator, from watching college tape, it's one of the first things I'm writing down that I'm going to attack if he's in at quarterback. So I'm going to see if he improved that accuracy not on those throws. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, he could throw those check down passes without problems. He can throw the crossing routes, and he can do some of that. But when I'm looking at a quarterback, I want to know how they do 10, 15, 25 yards outside the numbers, how well they do that, and then how do they do deeper over the middle? Because most quarterbacks in the NFL, they can hit the crossing routes, they can hit the slants within 10 yards, and they can do the checkdowns. What I want to know is whenever you've got a safety over top and you got to hit that pinpoint 25 yards downfield, or you got that 15-yard out or that 25-yard out or 20-yard out, or whatever.
Can you drive it in there? Yeah.
And that's kind of where I have more of my personal litmus test with the quarterback.
And that's why I honestly think 2 or 3 years ago, I think there's a chance that Drew Lock slides right out of the first round, because I think there's enough great things you see on film that's probably unfair, because one of the 32 teams is probably gonna take a gamble on him at somewhere in that first round.
Yeah.
But there's also enough on tape, if you go back and look at Drew Lock's whole career, to be red flags, right? I mean, because you remember, I don't know how much you watched Mizzou back in 2013 after the whole Matty Mock situation, 2014, when that, or I'm getting it all confused, 2015, because they went to the SEC Championship 13-14, but 2015, when he had to step in, they had, the whole debacle with, the boycott that almost was, and Matty Mock getting kicked off the team, and Gary Pinkel ends up retiring. And there were a lot of things. And then, of course, he has a change in head coach, change in coordinator. And then going into his senior year, Drew Lock has another change in coordinator. I mean, but there's a lot of red flags there. But I think that Patrick Mahomes' success is going to, it really benefits Drew Lock, because I think when you see Drew and his ability to throw from different arm angles, he's got the cannon for an arm and can chuck it a country mile, and with some accuracy downfield, his ability to improvise a little bit. I'm not saying it's at the level of Patrick Mahomes, but I think that there's enough there that you can make some comparisons between what you see from Drew Lock and his workouts and on tape to Patrick Mahomes. Or am I crazy?
What I think for Drew, in all honesty, what I think in terms of your Mahomes aspect, what I personally kind of see is that I think Denver and Oakland are going to be really motivated to try to find quarterbacks early that can compete with Mahomes and help keep them in that overall long-term race as a franchise so that they're able to compete with the Chiefs. So I do think both of them are going to invest in quarterbacks.
Giants are another team at the top of the draft. I think will be interested in that and quarterbacks as well.
They should be now. I mean, with Dave Gettleman Dave Gettleman picking the quarterback, you honestly never know with that guy. But I do think, I think the Raiders' apple of their eye is Kyler Murray, and I personally think Gruden was very envious of watching Mahomes from the opposite sidelines, and he wanted his own quarterback that could create like that, and that's why I'm expecting the Raiders to try to make a run at Kyler Murray and try to figure something out with the Cardinals, and even if that means giving up a lot of those picks that they got from some of their trades, I could see them potentially doing that if Gruden's really that big on Kyler Murray. And I still think the Broncos and Drew Lock some potential possibilities. Well, I think something. And now a team I would be nervous about if I were looking for a quarterback. The Chargers at some point are going to have to find Philip Rivers' heir apparent.
Replacement. Yeah.
So
same with the Giants need to replace Eli Manning. So
again, but with Dave Gettleman as general manager, I can't emphasize enough. That guy loves his running backs, his offensive line, his big receivers, and his defensive linemen.
I think they're set at running back.
I'm telling you, man, if you watch that guy's draft history when he was down in Carolina, I don't trust that guy running the draft.
No, that's fine. I do. Two things to remember. One, I think there's a lot of smoke with John Elway and Drew Lock. But two, it was John Gruden who coached Drew Lock at the Senior Bowl. So don't discount the possibility that that Gruden fell in love with Lock, and Lock will be a possibility to the Raiders, especially if Kyler Murray ends up going to the desert with old Patty Mahomes' former coach out there in Arizona.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah,
we'll see how it works out. But the biggest thing for Drew, I think, and this is why I don't discount the Broncos taking a quarterback, even though they have Joe Flacco, is because I personally think Drew Lock needs a couple years to sit behind a veteran quarterback in an NFL offense. Because I personally, I don't think he got a lot of opportunity to read defenses in college.
No, I agree.
Coordinators that he had.
I think he spent a lot of time having to relearn offensive systems.
And I just think he had instability at Mizzou to where I think it really, where I envisioned him being as a quarterback when he first got to Missouri versus where he ended up. I think he had too many factors around him that hindered his ability to develop into the quarterback that I think he could have been capable of being. If he'd been in the same system that Chase Daniel had when he was there, I think Drew Lock could have been an absolute star.
Yeah.
I just don't think he got the benefit of that stability.
Correct. Didn't have the same opportunity. Okay, real quick. Let's check the tweets.
Yeah, we're going to check the tweets. First one, it's going to be from Paul. Do you think we will sink any more resources into linebacker via draft or free agency? Why, with the exception of Derek Johnson, have we not had any luck with linebackers for the past several years?
I do think at some point they will try to get another linebacker. I mean, especially switching to a 4-3. I think that's a need on the roster to improve that position. I know they got Damian Wilson, but I still think that they need some help there. I don't think they'll invest a high round pick, and I think part of the reason they've struggled to develop linebackers is they haven't invested high round picks in that. I mean, if you think about some of the guys they did get in early rounds that didn't necessarily work out in terms of linebacker, but the only linebacker I can remember them really spending a lot on, was what, Derek Johnson, number 15 overall. I just think, look, if you're picking linebackers 5th, 6th, 7th round or undrafted guys, expect them to come in and be stars, you're probably not going to hit on many of those.
All right. I'll answer that question a little bit later on Twitter. From Zach, a lot of rumors swirling about adding Jadeveon Clowney. What picks would you give up for him, or would you just pass and try to fill that spot in the draft?
Well, I would not be in a rush to add Jadeveon Clowney myself. He's going to, be real expensive. He's got injury history as well. I think he's a great player, but I think the Chiefs have so many needs. He's not a guy that screams to me difference maker for this defense.
And I'll answer here because I know a lot of you guys want to appear on here. Jadeveon Clowney is not somebody I would invest in. I know the knock on him coming out of South Carolina was that he didn't really invest his time properly when he was down there, and also he had a switch where he could turn it on when he wanted to and turn it off whenever he felt like it. And I saw that a lot of times down there in Houston it matched up to what some of the scouts were telling me back then at the combine. And I know there's some other stories I won't get into right now, but I'd heard through the grapevine with some of the scouts over the years, just kind of some guys would. Well, I'll end up telling you one of them. Some scouts would fly down there to South Carolina to go watch him, and when they would get down there, like there's certain days that were open for them to be able to watch practice with the Steve Spurrier there at the time, and when they did, he wouldn't be practicing. So in some ways, they kind of wasted, unless there was a South Carolina guy that they were looking at, they kind of wasted a trip down there. And I know scouts do not like wasting their time when they're on the road. So I know I'd kind of heard that story, and then it always seemed like it was something injury-wise. So, I mean, overall, I personally, that always stuck in my head, and that's something that I personally, I would avoid doing. And then our final one from Keith, most likely scenario, Chiefs trade up for an edge rusher, Chiefs trade up for a cornerback, Chiefs trade back and out of the first round.
Oh, man. I mean, and I think I know what you're going to say. I don't think that they're going to trade up for a corner. So you can take that one out of the mix. I think it all depends on what opportunities present themselves, because I think the Chiefs have enough needs that you don't want to burn all this the draft capital you have for one guy. Because I don't think that this team is one guy away from being a Super Bowl contender. I think they have more needs than that. And I think that you don't want to, you don't want to Ricky Williams the draft here and like give up so much that you ultimately don't get everything you need to really be competitive. So I would put it at probably 60-40. 60, they move up to get a defensive lineman they really love. Or 40, they drop back, collect on their pick, get an early first round or early second round, and maybe another second rounder in there.
Yeah, for me personally, I think with the ammo that they have, I think they're setting themselves up to be able to trade for an edge rusher and move up into that spot if they need to, or a defensive impact player. But I personally think they're using that, they're having that ammo available if they want to go up for an edge rusher. But hey, maybe they'll throw us a curveball, and who knows? But if a team did offer a second rounder this year and a first next year to trade up, I wouldn't.
To move back?
To move back this year, but also get a duplicate first rounder next year. I personally wouldn't be against that if that opportunity became available.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of it just comes down to what opportunities present themselves, how the board falls. Because at 29, there's so much that's going to happen, before you can realistically. Because what's the highest you think the Chiefs can move up? I mean, because they're not going to be able. They don't have enough ammo to get into the top 5, I don't think. So what's a realistic target? 12, 16?
I think the highest they would be able to get with what they have, I was thinking the 15 to 17 range is probably where they could get to.
Yeah, and like I said, there's so much that's going to happen in those first few picks. It's just hard to predict right now. Depending on how everything falls, if there's a run on guys early, or if people feel comfortable, there's enough depth at that position that they kind of drag it out. You just never know. So a lot of it's just going to depend on who's available and when, and what opportunities you have to make a trade. So.
Yeah, so what's on the podcast next week there, Todd?
Well, Nick, why don't you tell me, because I didn't bring my notes with me.
Oh, my goodness, man.
Wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, is that what we were doing?
That's what you wrote down. You wrote down in your Google Calendar that you sent to me.
All right, well, there we go. Thanks for reading my my pre-show prep work for me, since I clearly didn't read it.
Hey, all I know is like I don't have a Google Calendar, so when people send me that, I'm like, okay.
All right, well, good talk.
Hey, yeah, no, it was
great.
And
maybe I'll see you next week.
And I just want to tell you, man, I love the shirt. You're wearing your Sunday best right now.
I am. You too. With
what about that poll, the Twitter poll?
Oh gosh, okay.
Huh? I know you wanted to throw that in there. I remember that right before the show ended. I haven't even looked at what ended up.
Well, I can tell you that I'm very disappointed.
Are you? Why are you disappointed?
That people decided that.
Oh, okay. So
you were more on the heroic end.
From the poll I put together. I put after you. I was responding to your poll that you did to me.
My poll, yeah, because you were bragging about your all those state titles you won at Oak Park or something along those lines.
I did not.
And I was
brag about that.
mocking you for it.
You asked if I lost my horse.
Oh yeah. What? Oh boy.
That's how the whole thing.
Is that how we
started.
got there?
That's
Wow,
how we
man.
ended up. I told you, man. Any topic with you is like a rabbit hole. You
I don't
just go
know.
down. Now, do you have your poll up? Because if not,
I do, I do.
Do yours.
I do. So the poll started out strong when I asked if you whiffed on your block or you executed a heroic combo block where you cleared the hole and then got to the second level. And then, as it turned out, this was a defensive play that you and your friend were talking about.
That's what I
So-
couldn't stop laughing about.
So none of it happened. But I'm sorry, I didn't study the
Yeah. So
2000.
what was the result?
Well,
for your poll?
62% of the people thought it was a heroic combo block, which
See, I
I'm su-
appreciate the belief from the
I'm
people out
surprised that you have that many family members on Twitter.
there. Yeah. Thank you, Aunt Tilly. No, and then I responded with my own poll for you. And,
Yeah, and it hurt my heart.
It did not stop. You were laughing about it for hours. My poll was, I was going to start my own poll, an inspiration. I said, "Will Todd Palmer be invited to my birthday party at Main Event?" 13% said yes, 26% said no, and 61% said, "What's a Todd Palmer?"
Ouch. That hurts.
And I want to let you know, I honestly, when I was making the poll, I thought about making it no, and what's a Todd Palmer, but I thought it'd be nice and leave that yes for you.
I laughed because I laughed to mask the tears inside, Nick.
And then I like when you responded, and you're like, "Will your birthday party be in September?" And I responded, "That's when I'll send you the invite for it."
Well, that's an inside joke. But I do look forward to the fact that you will send me an invite to your birthday party at Main Event in Olathe, and then you'll actually have it at the one in Independence, and I'm going to be totally totally out of luck. So that's okay.
Man, you know how often I'm in Olathe? The answer is never.
I know, because you've been supposed to come to Wahlburgers and have lunch with me for like 7 months.
And each time you want to go to it, it's like when it's bad weather, whenever it's getting ready to freezing rain
or right
snow.
after my wife is injecting me with the plague. One of the two, yeah.
Yeah, that was also not a day. I was going to be around your germs. That wasn't going to happen.
All right. Hey, say goodbye, Nick.
Goodbye, Todd.